Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of our past guests have included Val Vest at Cambridge Investment Research, Jeff Schwantz at Advisor 360, and Babu Sivadasan at Jiffy AI. Today, I get to speak with Clifton Schaller, the Chief Growth Officer of FutureVault. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using our Form Extract API, simply submit your completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that is 99.9% accurate. Visit quickforms.com to get started. All right, I'm excited to talk to Cliff today. Clifton Schaller is the Chief Growth Officer for FutureVault. He has a passion for customer-driven insights, striving to identify the biggest trends, pain points, and opportunities for innovation across the entire financial service ecosystem, and then looking for the right people or technology best positioned to address them. With a background in corporate development, product management, and strategic partnerships, Clifton is responsible for driving the intersection of top-line growth and product strategy. He's also responsible for managing multiple departments and product-led growth. Clifton previously served in key leadership roles at Capital One, Morningstar, and Nitrogen Wealth, which we all know as Riskalyze. Clifton also serves as an advisory board member for a rising startup, Smart KX. Outside of work, Clifton enjoys tennis and squash courts, watching the Chicago Cubs, traveling to their family home in Italy with his wife Stephanie, Enzo their son, and their Bernadoodle Massimiliano. Clifton, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Thanks so much. Super excited to be here and well on the pronunciation of our dog. We could also call him Massimo, maybe a little easier.
Massimo, that would be easier, but I love the full name. That's awesome. Now, if you haven't heard this podcast before, I talk with business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. Clifton, we want to understand your business a little better. How does your company help people?
Man, so many different ways to talk about that, but let me summarize it pretty brief so we have a lot of time to talk about a lot of different topics here today. So at FutureVault, we really help both customers and home office and advisors win. So there's multi-value streams taking place. And we help both customers. So our customers can be home office reps, they can be advisors, they can be family office users, but also investors, or what I call users investors, because we're all investors in some ways, with best-in-class technology by capturing documents and data through a variety of different ways. So when you think about, I like to use an example of whenever you've gone and gotten some advice, even if we don't want to use the financial vernacular, say legal advice and or accounting advice or tax advice, at some point in time, there's usually something exchanged between you and a professional, which we call trusted advisors, and yourself, the investor or the user in technology terminology. We go along the entire journey from start to finish, from starting opening an account to say legacy planning or wills and estates and trusts. We don't do the planning. We're not here to do any of that. We're here to just take what is generated, whether it's handwritten, whether it's generated from a document system or a third-party vendor, bring it into a vault. I mean, the word future vault, you can think of a vault similar to like the old banker boxes. I'm old enough to remember what those looked like. And all of your stuff's stored there. So we really help customers win by having what we call client clarity, knowing that all of my information is stored here. And to your, let's call it trusted advisor. In our case, it's usually a family office or a wealth manager, financial planner. All of your clients' records, all of your clients' touch points are stored in one place where we can X-ray through all of those documents either to find something quickly for compliance purposes, help you specialize, personalize your next touch point with your end investor, or for home office, really capture compliance, capture what should and shouldn't be there. So we really do add a lot of value and help people win throughout the journey in multiple different ways, and that's through our best-in-class technology.
Okay, so I got a few questions about this. You used the word X-ray, which may be a clue as to an answer to my next question. why do we need a Vault, a third-party system, if we already have, I don't know, OneDrive or Dropbox or Box.net? Why isn't that good enough?
So what we tend to say is that we're much more bespoke in a lot of ways. And when I say bespoke, I mean that from an integration perspective, who we're able to work with, what we're able to provide you as a home office, we're able to white label and improve your service model to your end clients by giving you a bespoke experience. So yes, there are the share files, the Dropboxes, the boxes of the world. Our service model, I think, is very highly tailored to the family office and the wealth manager. But we have a very easy way to understand costs. We're a SaaS company. It's not based on transaction of back and forth documents going back and forth. So as you grow, we can grow with you. And we try to take the complex price and packaging out of the way of you have unlimited vaults, you have unlimited customers, unlimited households. We're here to really service the end customer, but through the advisor and the home office, or in some cases, the family office as well. So again, much more integrated technology to help reps say, like, look, I don't use Salesforce, maybe I use a Wealthbox or a Redtail. You're not going to get that out of a Dropbox. So yeah. So we're a little bit more bespoke in that way. So we can really help people solve for exact needs very quickly as well. We can move quite quick in setting something up bespoke for all of our clients.
I also have to imagine, because your focus in the service capacity of our industry, you understand the security needs probably the best, right? But go back to this word X-ray. Does this mean that you guys can look for documents, understand content in the documents, and find them better?
Yeah. So I'm talking to an expert here as well, so I'll be careful with my language, because I'm not the form expert per se from my background, but I've learned a lot in a short amount of time. When I say X-ray, I think more about I'm an RIA. I've got 100 advisors that work for my firm, and I've got say 1,000 clients or households. I'm able to really look and find out who has a document that doesn't belong in what we want. Like we've got a statement or a certain type of document from a compliance purpose. We don't want to know that information. We can flag for that. If I'm doing onboarding of a client, having a checklist actually drop down to make sure that I've gone through every single step necessary for, say, a wirehouse or a bank. And then back to the RIA use case, let's say I can look across my practice and understand how many households do we have, how many of them have a dependent, how many of them don't have a 529 plan. So we can really work binary off of either financial plan or, say, 529 plan exists, doesn't exist. If not, we can flag that up. And all of this is bespoke for the home office. Going back to why not ShareFile or Dropbox, we can really help firms personalize and spend much less time searching, sorting, finding. I know the compliance piece is massive. To me, that's table stakes. You've got to be compliant. We're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, absolutely GDPR in Europe. So we are fully covered there. I look at the service model, and if I'm an advisor, how are you helping me day to day improve the quality of advice to my investors or clients? So that's the win. And then also to the home office, providing a best in class oversight on the insights and analytics based on the data that you've brought into the system.
Yeah.
So there's a lot at play there. But that's kind of where we are today as a company. We've been around for about 7 years, plus or minus. And then also, where are we headed? We're headed much more into that X-ray space to really drive home advisory driven or home office driven insights and analytics to help you make more informed, real-time decisions based on your needs of a practice and your clients.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things. I love the name having Vault in it, because when I work with somebody, I really want to make sure I'm giving them information that's secure and stored well. And so I like that aspect of it. The second thing, we're talking about the future. I mean, one of my favorite questions to ask is, what do you think the impact of AI is going to be on your business? And as I recall talking to you a month ago or something, it seemed like you guys were going down that path with AI to help create insights out of documents and action items to help advisors interact and engage their clients more. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is fair. And I'm very careful with the word AI because it can mean a lot of different things.
Right.
And you hear it so much now that I tend to be very cognizant and also conservative with what I share, because I don't necessarily want to use a buzzword unless we're driving impact.
Yeah.
So for us, I think exactly what you just shared, and it was great seeing you obviously in person. being able to look at the insights and analytics off of a document and make a suggested document. We already have pioneered this. This is something we've already done. We've already created trademarks and patents on suggested documentation. So we were already ahead of that in some ways, which is great. So speed to market, we're able to add value a lot faster because we were already thinking about this, our founder, a couple of years ago. So now with the disruption of technology and the use cases of technology, we're highly in the middle right now of looking at ways we can continue to improve that service model and the insights and analytics for the advisor, the end user, and the home office as well. So whether that means driving more leads, looking in and seeing like, hey, like, look, we're using marketing to drive, accelerate the amount of people we get in front of. Like, how can we help understand the insights and analytics off the current customer base you have, and then help that tailor with another vendor? Hey, we know what your customer book looks like. We can drive insights based on characteristics and or attributes inside the documents. That should then be helpful to help drive more personalized, streamlined marketing to go find customers that really are in your niche or in your wheelhouse. And this also impacts planning too, right? So I know that there's lots of vendors have vaults. They sit there, they store there. I like to use Rich, the storage facility example all the time, which is that, look, everyone's got a storage facility in some ways. You got to store something. Some don't. Some firms don't do that, but a lot of firms will store it for you. What if I told you when you walk into a storage facility, I could say, look, you're looking for something on an app on your phone. You can figure out which box is it in, where in your storage unit is it. Now that's impactful for you, the customer. But what if you have 10,000 storage units?
Yeah.
What if there is someone sleeping in the storage space, or there's a bomb? Things that you can't keep track of due to scale. We're there to help the home office and the advisor identify what is and what isn't, and then what's the makeup of what's inside these vaults.
Yeah.
Am I seeing growth in certain types of, say, wills or trusts? Am I seeing, insurance claims coming through? Like, what's, giving those insights and analytics back to understand how are we progressing, and are we hitting some of our company goals? That to me is what I've been really brought into this company to do, is to take my background and really an expertise and say, look, I understand the customer, and the customers are thinking about this all the time. How can we service to them in a meaningful way?
Yeah.
So those are some things, and AI, of course, will be a part of that discussion. It's just we're still in the works.
Yeah. You alluded to something I think is really important as you think about artificial intelligence. And it's akin to something I heard a long time ago. When the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s, I was at UCLA and listening to a guy talk about it. And he said, the problem in the late 90s, early 2000s of the internet was everybody's going around saying, what is your internet strategy? And he said, here's the problem with that. The internet is a tool. It's like walking up to a carpenter and saying, what is your hammer strategy? Like, that makes no sense. I'm going to use the hammer, hit a nail. I mean, like, what's the strategy of a tool? So when we talk about artificial intelligence, I still think of it as just another tool set that helps us have an impact on your customer in the way that is better for them, right? And it's not about, I'm an AI company or we have an AI product. It is, how am I really benefiting my customer doing that? So I like that you guys are thinking that way.
Yeah, and I don't like the buzzword, right? Like, I am an operator at heart. And, look, it's obviously a focus. We're obviously thinking about it. I mean, AI and this type of technology has been around for quite some time.
Yeah.
This is not net new. So this isn't some new paradigm shift that's taking place. It's more of just the adoption, the accessibility, I feel, that's being spread across multiple verticals. So it's interesting to keep in touch with. I tend to be a little bit more of, that's more the 20% of the portfolio of our product capabilities. I'm much more in driving insights and analytics that someone can say, what can you do for me today? Or what have you done for me lately? Because at the end of the day, in a hard macroeconomic, let's call it cycle we're in, when the cost of capital is high and sales cycles extend, I tend to hear from folks that I need you to tell me what you can do for me now, right? Like, talk to me more about the vault capabilities today than what you want to do in 5 years. So I'm hyper focused on creating value for our current customers and our future customers based on the current roadmap that we've established and driving towards it. Now, obviously, those things change, and there's things that alter that, but for the most part, we have a pretty clean strategy of, how we know we're going to win. It's been tested, back tested. We've had a lot of customer engagement on it, and AI is a part of it. But you're not going to hear me, Rich, be the guy that's going to, put AI as a billboard behind my office and say that's all I talk about. So, but anyhow.
So, Clifton, let's switch gears a little bit. What does a chief growth officer do? That's not a normal title for many companies. So how do you define your role? What is it?
Yeah, so my role is a little bit unique, and it's kind of a testament to my background, right? Getting a lot of the skill set and advantages that I've got across my career. So growth typically comes from sales or marketing, right? So you're growing a company on the top line. I'm a big believer, Rich, in product-led growth. I think that at the end of the day, technology today is so much more faster and nimble than it was, say, 15 years ago, even 5 years ago. You've got to have a really sound product, right? And I'm talking SaaS specifically, right? That's the space I play in. So, I oversee our product team, our customer success, our sales, and, work collaboratively with our CMO. But I'm here to drive, the top line of the company. In working two in a box with our CEO, our executive chairman, and our board, to really help put together the roadmap for near term, short term, and long term growth, and putting together the whole entire ecosystem of different ideas, risk management, partnerships, top line, just traditional sales. So I've got a lot of hands and a lot of pots, but it plays a lot to my advantages as an executive leader of what I've been able to accomplish in my career, and seeing lots of different angles from how to grow, and different ideas flop. So taking a lot of that collective learning and trying to put the best case possible for a smaller company continue to grow. So typically these roles are mainly sales. That's all you cover, or they're only marketing, or maybe a blend of the both. But I have a lot more involvement in the day-to-day and strategic element on our product side, which is helpful, because at the end of the day, if you're selling a product and the product organization is very disconnected from the sales and marketing organization, which tends to happen a lot, we've got problems. We're selling stuff we don't have, or we're selling things that do not work, or we don't understand the product. So if you're going to use a product, in our case, that's what we do. And I believe also in our industry, it's all SaaS driven for the most part. That to me is critical. You got to understand your customer, and you got to understand your product. And if your sales team and marketing department doesn't understand it just as good as the product, level of disconnect there, because they don't want our sellers to be so involved in the roadmap. But I do want our sales team to know specifically, what value does this add? Why does someone need this, right? So deeper than just a SWOT analysis or talk track for sales and pitch decks. Like, I want you to know, how does this thing function A to B? What are those gaps? Who are our partners who can help fill those gaps, et cetera? So my role is unique, but it's extremely beneficial to our company, because it crosses the background that I've been able to accomplish in my career. So they're getting a lot out of me, I guess you could say.
I love it. I actually think I want to adopt your title, because I love product driven. I mean, customer centric and product led growth makes so much sense to me. And honestly, that is how we've been building our company. We always think about, how does a customer work? How do they interact with technology? What would benefit their process, their workflow? Sales is kind of the last thing I think about. I mean, I think of the prospect. I think of how well it could grow, and how big of a market opportunity there is for a given product. I mean, we're not just going to invest for the sake of investing. But I do like that idea. Okay, let me ask you a slightly different question, because the word growth implies a lot of different things.
Sure.
For those who are listening to this, they can't see that you are surrounded by books.
Yeah.
How much personal growth have you gone through? How many of those books are about you?
Look, I love to read. It's in my office. My wife forced it to go in there. I couldn't have a library somewhere, and our son took another room, so the library became the office in some ways. But a lot of the growth that I have picked up from is from people. I'm a very relational person, whether it's in my own family or people that I've worked with. It's also through listening, right? So that can come in a lot of different forms. I run and cycle a lot, so I listen to a lot while I'm doing that. But I also read a lot. I mean, obviously behind me. So I split my time between non-work related work. I have to take a break and check out, and read stuff that I have other interest in. But then I also spend a lot of time reading about others that have, made an impact, or have done something really incredible in their career, and how do they do it? and try to, dissect and look through what that is and see how much of that's relative to my exposure, my potential impact, and how much of it's just straight for learning. Like, wow, it's a really great story. It's incredible that you've been able to do that many private equity deals in the course of a year. Like, that's incredible, the scale and just the amount of time. So I'm a constant learner. As a testament to my career of learning and listening to a lot of different people. A lot have been on your podcast that I've either intersected with or have been able to collaborate with from a partnership perspective. So I am a sponge. I like to listen and learn from a lot of different people, and it can come from a book or from person to person interactions, or just listening along as I logged miles on my bike. So.
I think there's a lot to this. And if anybody went to your LinkedIn and looked at your profile, not only have you worked for really amazing companies, but you've had incredible titles and roles at these companies. And it's like, how did you get there? You've accelerated your career. And I have to imagine it's because you have this attitude of you want to learn and you're a sponge to that learning. Do you have Sorry. Do you have a favorite book that you love to recommend to people? And you could be different by circumstance, but I'm just curious what your favorites are that you kind of think through.
Yeah, books wise, Robert Greene, I think he's right behind me here. 40 Laws of Power. His books have been incredible. I was a history major when I started my college career. I thought I was going to become an attorney and become a judge. That did not happen. We went a different direction there. But I tend to be very big into economics, macro, micro. I'm an econ degree from went to school in Italy, so it's just in my nature and training to be very macro, micro thinking. I think all the time about capital markets, the cost of capital, inflation rate, how that impacts everything around us. But I don't tend to read about it all the time because it can be pretty dry.
Oh yeah.
But Robert Greene has had a massive amount of impact on me. I love his writing style. The Art of Mastery, I think the book is called, right behind me here. Yeah, it's just called Mastery. Really good book. And then also just classics. This section over here is all classic driven books. So I'm still reading Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, and that's a thick read, but
that's heavy reading.
Heavy reading, but just the impact it has on the mind and human nature. I kind of, wide in out kind of reading where I do stuff that's very specific to work. And then, Ray Dalio, for an example, another great author that I love to read. But then I also go outside of work. So.
Yeah, I read Ray Dalio's book, The Principles of a Changing New World Order. Totally fascinating view of the world.
Yeah, that's right down here. Yeah. Great book.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's incredible. And, it's something I missed out on because frankly, I don't like to read. It's kind of funny. I always have two brain processes running at the same time, and reading is hard for me. So I have to listen to music in order to focus on the reading. And even that doesn't always work. So I loved audiobooks because I can drive my car and listen to the audiobook and learn that way. And once I got into audiobooks, oh my gosh, I was devouring. I was just getting as much as I could. It was just so amazing. So I want to ask you something, Cliff, because I've noticed this personally. The more I've read and the more personal development I've done, the faster my company has grown.
Oh.
Have you had similar experiences in your career? Do you think you can correlate to that?
Yes and no. I think there is a little bit of luck involved, being at the right place at the right time and having the right discussion when something happens, I feel. But, I think reading to me has been the escape in some ways to, like, when I'm not working and I'm not, chugging at 150% at work. It helps me kind of well round the gaps that I'm not getting from work. So, spending time in corporate development activities, your head's down on running a process with a potential target. How can I read something that's not a part of our company somewhere else to see how they did something, maybe in a completely different total addressable market or vertical? So I tend to read to try to skill up and try to read to, fill in some of the weaknesses of exposure and knowledge, because I'm not an investment banker, right? I didn't even go to school for finance. So I'm very realistic, Rich, with my skills and my strengths and weaknesses. And then, I've heard from great people in my career, just focus on your strengths. Just go do what you're great at. And that's the best way to add value. For other people, say, look, operator, you got a lot of tools around the tool belt. Go get stronger at the things you're weak in so that you can be a well-rounded Swiss Army knife. So I tend to do both. I have some things that are right in my fairway that I love doing, and I add a tremendous amount of value to our customers, my colleagues, our industry. There's some other areas that I feel like if I can get stronger and better at this, man, like the amount of impact I can make for our customers, the amount of impact I can make for our shareholders or to our board members, to my colleagues, right? So I'm a very in the locker room guy. Like I am all about the team we have, the team we need. What are we focused on? And now I'm at, I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a lot more impact in my career on setting what we want to do inside the locker room or putting the plays on the chalkboard and saying this is what we're here to do, and then really making that become realized on the field. Um, I love looking at stuff. But going back to your question quickly, is I tend to read things to help me understand and empathize. Even like being an executive now, like what does all that entail for the first time, right? Reading books about people when it was their first time, becoming an executive. What does that mean? What are your responsibilities? What are things I wish I could have done differently? So I tend to use books as the gap filler.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I was watching just a clip of an interview from a former IBM CEO, a female. Her name is Jenny. I forgot her last name. And she was talking about her interview to become the executive. And she went into this and they offered her the job. And she says, okay, let me go talk to my husband about it. And the interviewer was like, okay, sure. She went and talked to her husband. They had a great conversation. Her husband came back and said, you know, you're going to do this. Go accept the job. And then her husband said, by the way, how do you think a man would have answered that interviewer question about, do you want the job or not? And she's like, he would have taken it. He's like, yeah, of course. They would have just accepted it and then figured it out on the end. So she went back and accepted the job. And the interviewer, who she's known, right? She was friends with this person, but the interviewer is like, don't ever do that again. And the point was, don't let your confidence down. You're going to move forward with confidence. That's how you're going to move forward the best way. So I agree with you. I mean, finding out from others what they're doing really, really helps you move forward in your own career as well as your own development and your own sense of confidence. So that's great. I think that's an awesome use for books.
Let me add just one more to that, because this is something I've kind of realized, I feel like, in the last year. I used to have this way of thinking and kind of mental model in my brain throughout my career that, I kind of felt like I was always, and when you go through a tremendous amount of growth in a short amount of time, there's always a little bit of, there's a little bit of doubt or fear of like, am I doing the right things? Am I doing it the right way? Am I the right person? Right? That is natural. I feel like for most people, not all people, but most people, definitely for me. And for a while, I kind of felt like, man, this is tough. Like I'm not an investment banker. I didn't go to school for finance. This is not my thing, right? But I've come now to the realization that, I actually have flipped that coin, which is that when I'm in a room and the only people in the room are investment bankers, or I'm only in the room with product people, if you've only done one slice of your career in one space, your vernacular or your translation of
Your
needs,
filter.
customers, finance, your filter is extremely different. So I've actually flipped that, Rich, to say, I've done a lot of different things. I mean, my LinkedIn, as you said, is a great example of that. And the roles that I've had is an example of that. I used to hear like, what is this guy doing in the room? Right? It's a private equity deal. What are you doing here? So I've now flipped that to say, no, I know why I'm here. And I know exactly what's going to happen here because I've done my homework and I've actually done the roles, right? So going back to the confidence point is that it used to be a challenge and tough because I always felt like, am I playing the right position here? Am I doing the right stuff? And then it's now become like, oh, I'm a center on the ice, or I can play in the middle of the field. I can play offense, defensive. I can block, I can block the goals, et cetera. So, having a lot of that skill set and confidence at the end of the day now is being felt through everything that I'm doing because, you've been around the block or you've played a lot of positions on the field, however you want to use the analogy. So I encourage folks now, rather than just looking at myself, I'm a very big believer of servant leadership, looking at others and saying, if you're not comfortable or you don't like doing what you're doing, what would you do? And if it's something completely different, like, hey, I build product, I'm a technical product manager, but I actually really like FP&A. I'm now, I hold myself to a standard to say, I will help you get there, right? Like we will figure out a way. Maybe it's not here, maybe it's somewhere else, maybe it is going to become here. I want people to be fired up every day to come to work and be rowing towards the same direction, towards the mission, vision, OKRs, whatever you want to use. Because I think that one person can add a lot of impact, obviously. But if you can get 10, 20, hundreds, thousands of people to row in the same direction and stay on course, to me, that's a harder skill set to master, but it's one of the most impactful skill sets to master. Is really just staying on goal and staying on task, when to say no, and really being aligned to a collective vision, mission, or goal or objective. So I've spent a lot more of my time saying, I've done a lot of different things. I have a very unique skill set. The skill set is extremely valuable to our industry. And rather than being someone where it's inward, it's much more outward. Of how can I use my skill set, my translation, my filter to help everyone else around me to get to where we want to go. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
Yeah, of course. And I love what you're saying here, because I'm gonna say it in a slightly different way. What you've done is you've come to clarity on who you are and what your gifts are, and you've established confidence in those abilities. And it has nothing to do with what other people can do or can't do. It has nothing to do with what you can't do. It has everything to do with what you know you can do best. And just as a case in point, one of my best skills is pattern recognition. And what allowed me to become a software developer, I mean, I got my degree in finance. I taught myself software so I could build quick. And what allowed me to do that was that I was good at seeing the pattern of software development. Don't ask me how it worked. Don't ask me to write it from scratch. I could copy other people's stuff and modify it to my needs and then figure it out and make it work. And I was watching my son last night. I bought him one of those word search puzzles where you circle the words. And he was like, let's do it together, Dad. I'll do a word, you do a word. And so he would choose a word. And these words are anywhere from 3 to even 10 characters long. And so he would choose a word and then say, Dad, go do this. I found the word like this. I mean, it was backwards, upside down. I found it like this because it's one of my favorite things. And then I watched him do it, and he found it maybe a second after I would have. He's only 8. He's actually very fast at this. So I think pattern recognition is one of his strengths. But when you come to a meeting where you've got this diverse group of people or different perspectives, and your skill set, mine in particular, is pattern recognition, then you can apply that and lead the team forward towards the goal that you're trying to get. And then let the other people be empowered to bring their skills to the table to fill in the gaps that you don't have, like the better software developer for me.
150%. I think also too, it's a matter of respect from your colleagues, right? Like knowing that you've done something, and I call it the trenches. Like you've been in the trenches where the team's at. It shows people that you're not someone that leads just from the front. You're willing to you're willing to lead from the rear. You're willing to lead from the field. Like you're willing to really put others in a position to win. But you've done it before, and I think that's something that, at the beginning of my career, it was much more of the, what are you doing here? Like, you're not one of us, or you don't really understand our language. And rather than just, conflict, then saying I'm out, or this isn't really a good fit for me, I stopped and listened and said, well, what is the language? How do you do things? And very inquisitive. And, I've said this a lot. I've an operator mindset of, I can land anywhere, right? I can jump out of a plane, land on the ground, and I know I'm going to be okay. Like I've gotten the skills and the battle scars to show, hard and tough stuff for big companies and small companies. So, to me, at the end of the day, I'm trying to add as much value first and foremost to our customers, to my team, right? And then to our board members and shareholders, right? Like I'm very clear of that it is outward, not inward, right? I'm just one guy and a part of a team, and I'm here to add as much value as possible. And it might be different than when I first started. But I'm okay with that. If that's what the company needs to help toe the line and get to where we want to go, like operator mindset, let's do it.
Yeah. Man, I love these conversations, and I don't like ending my podcast because I want to just keep talking about it, but we do have to wrap up here. And before I do ask you my last question, what's the best way for people to find and connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. On LinkedIn all the time. Just my first and last name. Shoot me a note on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm not on Twitter or anything like that. So.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, but I don't respond to Twitter. All right. So here's my last question. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style, or even just how you approach your role?
Oh man, that's a great question. And I'm going to put aside like the family, just because family is incredibly important to myself in my own family. So my mother and my grandfathers come to mind, obviously, first and foremost. But someone that comes to mind, like in our industry, that's had a tremendous amount of impact on me is Peter Franco. Peter Franco and I worked together at Morningstar for a number of years. Now he's over at invent.us and he's running product over there with that group. And we're great friends and still keep in touch. But he really taught me kind of when going through that phase of growth, struggle, et cetera. He was the person in my career that was there the most to kind of really give me a second opinion about my own biases or my own frustrations. And he's kind of the reason I got into product management, which is kind of the turnaround out of where I kind of started my career and now where I'm at today. So Peter Franco comes to mind first. The other two that I'll quickly mention, James McClamrock, also another good friend, also from Morningstar, as the general manager, basically, of an entire business unit. He showed me how to lead a large group of people and do it in a servant way. I still keep in touch with him. He still inspires me to this day. And then last but not least, Dan Beccarella, another Morningstar alumni. And he taught me, as my manager at the time, the value of treating people like people and treating people as a human being and not a resource or an FTE or a number on an Excel spreadsheet, but really get to know the person and build a relationship so you can help them wherever it goes. So he's had a lot of impact on me as well. It's ironic they're all from Morningstar, but when you spend a lot of time there, you tend to grow a big family. So those are the three that come to mind.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That reminds me of my days at Arthur Andersen in the 90s. One of my best friends and I, we would get so frustrated with how the leaders would lead. Their approach was to manage people and lead resources. We're like, no, it's the other way around. You lead people and manage resources. And we get so frustrated with that. So it's a really nice lesson to hear from somebody else.
Yeah, we're human beings. So, at the end of the day, I try to cut through all that and just say, like, look, I'm here to help you as a person first, and build that trust and relationship. And then, it doesn't mean there's not tough times at work or people have to be let go or you have to make a change. But at the end of the day, I try to advocate for the people around me because I want people to buy in, right? And it's very hard for people to buy in and hit an objective when they don't really trust or appreciate their manager. So I lead by example as much as I can.
Yeah, for sure. It's apparent. And, you just made me realize something, that the customer wins when you help people. That's really what it's about. It's when you treat them like people and seek to help them in the best way possible. That is when you end up helping your customers win the most. That's a good realization. All right. I want to say we could give a huge thank you to Clifton Schaller, Chief Growth Officer at FutureVault, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out their website at futurevault.com. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Clifton, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much. I'll say ciao and arrivederci.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.